Sophia Marino balanced 3 plates along her left arm with the practiced skill of someone who had spent too many years in food service. The Thursday lunch rush at Bella Notte was in full swing, the restaurant humming with conversation and the clatter of silverware against ceramic. She slid a plate of carbonara in front of a businessman who didn't bother to look up from his phone, then served a Caesar salad to his companion. "Careful, the plate is hot," she warned as she set down the chicken parmesan. She tucked a stray strand of dark hair behind her ear and forced her customer service smile. "Can I get you anything else right now?" "Ah!" The businessmen shook their heads without making eye contact, already cutting into their food. Sophia suppressed a sigh and turned away, scanning the restaurant for any tables signaling for attention. 25 years old, with a master's degree in art history gathering dust, while she served pasta to people who didn't know Caravaggio from calamari. Her phone vibrated in her apron pocket. Sophia normally ignored calls during her shift, but she'd been waiting to hear back about a gallery assistant position that might finally put her degree to use. She glanced around. Marco, the floor manager, was busy seating a party of 6, and the kitchen was backed up enough that she had a moment to breathe. She slipped her phone out just enough to see the caller ID, Nonna. Her grandmother never called during work hours, unless it was important. Sophia stepped into the small alcove near the restrooms and answered. "Pronto, Nonna," she said, instinctively switching to Italian as she always did with her grandmother. "Sophia, tesoro." Her grandmother's voice came through, sounding distressed. "Ho bisogno del tuo aiuto. Il dottore ha cambiato la mia medicina e non capisco le istruzioni." Sophia pressed the phone closer to her ear. Her grandmother was saying something about her medication being changed, and she couldn't understand the instructions. "Calmati, nonna. Leggi cosa c'è scritto sulla bottiglia," Sophia replied soothingly, asking her to read what was on the bottle. As her grandmother began slowly reading the prescription label, Sophia didn't notice the man who had paused near the alcove, his attention caught by her fluent Italian. Vincent Romano stood perfectly still, his dark eyes fixed on the young waitress he'd seen around his restaurant for the past few months, but had never really noticed before today. "Due compresse al giorno con il cibo, nonna. Mattina e sera." Sophia explained that her grandmother needed to take 2 pills daily with food, morning and evening. "Vuoi che passi dopo il lavoro?" Vincent watched as she offered to come by after work, the rapid Italian flowing from her lips as naturally as English. He'd been searching for a new interpreter for weeks, ever since his usual translator had given notice. The Vitelli family was arriving from Sicily on Saturday for negotiations that could finally legitimize his family business completely, washing away the last remnants of his father's and uncle's questionable past. "Va bene, nonna. Ti voglio bene. Ci vediamo stasera," Sophia concluded, promising to see her grandmother that evening. She slipped her phone back into her apron pocket and turned, startling, when she found herself face to face with Vincent Romano. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who commanded respect without having to ask for it. His tailored charcoal suit contrasted with the more casual attire of the lunch crowd, and the silver at his temples only enhanced his distinguished appearance. "Mr. Romano," she said, her eyes widening slightly. In the 6 months she'd worked at Bella Notte, she'd seen the owner only a handful of times. Rumors about his family connections swirled among the staff, whispers of mob ties that Sophia had dismissed as dramatic exaggerations fueled by too many viewings of The Godfather. "I'm sorry, I know we're not supposed to take personal calls during shifts, but it was my grandmother and—" Vincent raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "You speak Italian." It wasn't a question. "Yes," she nodded. "My father was born in Florence. I grew up speaking it at home." Vincent's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation, perhaps, or possibility. "Fluent?" "Yes, sir. I studied in Rome for a year during college, too." He nodded once, decision made. "Come to my office when your shift ends." Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, heading toward the private dining room in the back. Sophia stood frozen, a knot forming in her stomach. Why would the owner want to see her? Was he angry about the phone call after all? Or worse, was he laying people off? "Sophia, table 7 needs their check, and 12 is ready to order," Marco called from across the restaurant. She jolted back to reality. "Coming!" The rest of her shift crawled by, each minute stretching into what felt like hours. Sophia moved on autopilot, taking orders, delivering food, processing payments. All the while, her mind raced with possibilities about what Vincent Romano could want with her. By 3:30, the lunch crowd had thinned considerably. Sophia finished wiping down her last table and headed to the employee locker room to remove her apron and check her appearance. The woman in the mirror looked back at her with anxious brown eyes. She reapplied her lip gloss, more out of nervous habit than necessity, and smoothed her black slacks and white button-down shirt, the standard Bella Notte uniform. Marco intercepted her as she emerged. "The boss is still waiting for you," he said, nodding toward the back office. "Did he say what it's about?" Sophia asked, hoping for some clue. Marco shook his head. "No, but after you took that call, he came straight to me and said, 'Don't let her leave without seeing me.'" He shrugged. "Whatever it is, good luck." Those words, "don't let her leave," sent a chill through Sophia. They sounded ominous, like something from those mob movies her roommate Jess was always watching. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that this was real life, not cinema. Vincent Romano was just a businessman, not a mafia don. The door to his office was closed. Sophia knocked tentatively. "Enter," came the response from within. She opened the door to find Vincent seated behind a large desk of dark wood, his attention focused on a laptop screen. The office was tastefully appointed, leather furniture, a small conference table in the corner, and walls adorned with black and white photographs of Italy. "No severed horseheads or guns in sight," she noted, with a touch of self-deprecating humor. "Mr. Romano, you wanted to see me?" she said, standing awkwardly just inside the doorway. He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Miss Marino, sit down, please." Sophia took the seat opposite his desk, hands clasped in her lap to keep them from fidgeting. Vincent closed his laptop and studied her for a long moment. "How long have you worked here?" he finally asked. 6 months, sir. And before that, I waited tables at Trattoria Fiorentina while finishing my master's degree in art history at Boston University." Something like surprise flickered across his features. "Art history? Yet you're waiting tables." Sophia felt a flash of embarrassment mingled with defensiveness. "The job market for art historians isn't exactly booming, Mr. Romano. I've applied to dozens of galleries and museums, but in the meantime I have rent to pay." He nodded, seemingly satisfied with her candor. "Your Italian is excellent." "Thank you. I need an interpreter," he said bluntly. "My regular translator quit last week. I have important business associates arriving from Sicily on Saturday, and the meetings will continue through much of next week. Their English is limited, and my Sicilian dialect isn't strong enough for business negotiations." Of all the scenarios Sophia had imagined, this hadn't been one of them. "You want me to interpret for you?" "Yes. The position would be temporary. 1 week, possibly 2. I'll pay you $500 per day, plus you'll keep your regular salary." Sophia blinked, mentally calculating. $500 a day for potentially 2 weeks. That was more money than she made in a month at the restaurant. It could pay off a significant chunk of her student loans or give her enough savings to take fewer shifts and focus more on finding a job in her field. "What would I need to do exactly?" she asked cautiously. "Attend meetings, translate documents, accompany me and my guests to dinners. Ensure nothing is lost in communication," Vincent explained. "The hours would be irregular, and I'd need you on call. You would have to cancel any other commitments for those 2 weeks." Sophia frowned slightly. "I have classes I teach at the Community Arts Center on Tuesdays and Thursdays." Vincent's expression didn't change. "As I said, you'd need to clear your schedule completely." She hesitated. The money was tempting, incredibly so, but something about the situation made her uneasy. Perhaps it was the rumors about Vincent's family, or maybe it was simply the abruptness of the offer. "These business associates," she began carefully, "what exactly is the nature of your business with them?" A hint of amusement crossed Vincent's face. "You're wondering if I'm asking you to translate for some illicit mafia deal." Sophia felt her cheeks flush. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." He leaned back in his chair. "Bella Notte is one of 6 restaurants I own in Boston, Miss Marino. The Vitelli family owns olive groves and vineyards in Sicily. I'm negotiating an exclusive import arrangement for their olive oil and wines. Completely legitimate, I assure you." He reached into a drawer and withdrew a folder, sliding it across the desk to her. "My business portfolio. Feel free to review it if you have concerns about the legitimacy of what I'm asking." Sophia didn't reach for the folder. Instead, she met his gaze directly. "Why me? Surely there are professional interpreters you could hire." "Professional interpreters require time to book, are expensive, and most importantly, aren't familiar with the nuances of restaurant business terminology," Vincent replied. "You already work for me, you speak fluent Italian, and Marco tells me you're reliable and intelligent. It's a matter of convenience and timing." When he put it that way, it sounded reasonable. "And yet, I'd need time to think about it," she said. Vincent shook his head. "I need an answer now. If you decline, I need to make other arrangements immediately." Sophia took a deep breath. $500 a day, a chance to use her Italian skills for something other than talking to her grandmother or reading Renaissance art texts. A brief glimpse into a world far removed from balancing plates and jotting down drink orders. "All right," she said finally, "I'll do it." Something that might have been relief passed across Vincent's features. "Good. I'll need you to start tomorrow. Come here at 9 in the morning, dress professionally. We'll be reviewing contracts and preparing for the Vitelli's arrival." "Tomorrow? But I'm scheduled to work the lunch shift." "I'll have Marco adjust the schedule," Vincent said dismissively. He stood, indicating that their meeting was concluded. "One more thing, Miss Marino. These negotiations are private. I expect complete discretion about anything you hear or translate." Sophia stood as well, suddenly feeling as though she'd agreed to something much bigger than a simple translation job. "Of course." Vincent extended his hand and she shook it, noticing the firmness of his grip and the expensive watch peeking out from beneath his shirt cuff. "Until tomorrow, then," he said. As Sophia left the office, her mind was already racing with questions and second thoughts. What had she gotten herself into? And why did she have the distinct feeling that there was more to this job than Vincent Romano was telling her? Outside Bella Notte, she pulled out her phone and dialed her roommate. "Jess, you're not going to believe what just happened." Sophia arrived at Bella Notte at 8:45 the next morning, 15 minutes earlier than instructed. She'd spent half the night alternating between excitement about the unexpected windfall and anxiety about what exactly she was getting herself into. After Jess had finished shrieking about the mob boss opportunity and insisting they watch Goodfellas for research purposes, Sophia had called her grandmother to explain she wouldn't be able to visit for a couple of weeks. "Un lavoro di traduzione? Che meraviglia!" her grandmother had exclaimed, delighted that Sophia would be using her Italian for something meaningful. Now, standing outside the restaurant's entrance in the cool morning air, Sophia smoothed down her only professional outfit, a charcoal pencil skirt, cream silk blouse, and black blazer she'd worn to job interviews. The clothes felt foreign compared to her usual waitress uniform or her preferred artist's attire of jeans and oversized sweaters. The restaurant was closed to the public, but when she tried the door, it opened. Inside, the dining room was empty, the chairs still upturned on tables. Sophia made her way toward Vincent's office, the click of her modest heels echoing in the silence. Before she could knock, the door opened, revealing not Vincent, but a woman Sophia had never seen before. In her early 50s, with impeccably styled silver-streaked dark hair, The woman exuded efficiency and authority. She wore a tailored navy suit and regarded Sophia with sharp, assessing eyes. "You must be the waitress," she said, her tone making the word sound slightly dismissive. "I'm Diane Russo, Mr. Romano's executive assistant." "Sophia Marino," she replied, extending her hand, which Diane shook briefly. "Come in. Mr. Romano will be here shortly. He's on a call with our lawyers." Diane stepped aside, allowing Sophia to enter the office. The space looked different in the morning light, larger somehow and more intimidating. The conference table that had been in the corner now dominated the center of the room, covered with stacks of documents, a laptop, and several folders. "Have a seat," Diane instructed, gesturing to the table. "Would you like coffee?" "Yes, please. Black is fine." While Diane stepped out to get the coffee, Sophia took the opportunity to examine the documents on the table. Most were in Italian, detailing specifications for olive oil production, quality standards, and shipping logistics. Nothing that screamed illegal activity, which was somewhat reassuring. The door opened again and Vincent entered, ending a phone call as he walked. "Make sure the amendments are incorporated by this afternoon, Tony. The Vitellis arrive tomorrow." He slipped the phone into his pocket and turned his attention to Sophia. "Miss Marino, good, you're early." Today he wore a navy suit that probably cost more than 3 months of Sophia's rent, the crisp white shirt underneath setting off his olive complexion. His presence filled the room in a way that made it feel smaller. "Good morning, Mr. Romano," she replied, standing automatically. Vincent nodded toward the table. "Sit. We have a lot to cover." Diane returned with coffee for everyone, then took a seat across from Sophia. Vincent remained standing, pacing slightly as he began to speak. "The Vitelli family is one of the oldest and most respected agricultural producers in Sicily," he explained. "For generations, they've maintained their olive groves and vineyards using traditional methods, but they've been hesitant to export to America because they worry about maintaining quality control and authentic representation of their products." He paused, taking a sip of his coffee. "My restaurants currently import olive oil and wine from various Italian suppliers, but I want exclusivity with the Vitellis. Their products are superior, and having sole distribution rights in New England would be advantageous." "Sounds straightforward enough," Sophia commented, still waiting for the catch. Vincent's lips curved slightly. "In theory. In practice, there are complications." Diane slid a folder across the table to Sophia. "These are profiles of the key family members you'll be interpreting for." Sophia opened the folder to find photographs and brief biographies of 3 people. Antonio Vitelli, late 70s, family patriarch; Marco Vitelli, mid-40s, Antonio's nephew and operations manager; and Gabriella Vitelli, early 30s, Antonio's granddaughter and company lawyer. "Antonio is old school," Vincent continued. "He values personal connections and tradition above all else. He's reluctant to expand too much, fearing it will compromise quality. Marco is more business-minded, eager to grow their exports. Gabriella is the bridge between them. She understands her grandfather's concerns, but sees the potential in expansion." Sophia nodded, studying the profiles. "And what's your strategy for convincing them?" Something like approval flashed in Vincent's eyes at her question. "I need to show Antonio that I respect tradition and quality as much as he does. That means emphasizing the authentic Italian experience my restaurants provide and demonstrating how we'll market their products as premium, artisanal goods, not mass-market commodities." "We've arranged for Antonio to visit all 6 of Vincent's restaurants," Diane added. "He needs to feel confident that his family's products will be represented properly." Vincent stopped his pacing and leaned against the table, fixing Sophia with an intense gaze. "When you translate, I need you to convey not just my words, but my intention. Italians communicate as much through subtext and emotion as through actual language. Can you do that?" Sophia met his gaze steadily. "Yes, I understand Italian communication styles. My father's family is very expressive. Good, Vincent straightened. Now there's something else you should know. The Vitellis have had offers from other buyers, including my uncle, Carmine Romano. There it was, the complication Sophia had been waiting for. Your uncle wants the same exclusivity deal? She asked. Vincent's expression hardened slightly. Carmine owns a chain of Italian-American restaurants on the West Coast. They're different from mine, more focused on quantity than quality, catering to tourists who think fettuccine Alfredo is authentic Italian cuisine. The disdain in his voice was palpable, and Sophia had to suppress a smile. Food snobbery she could understand. Her own father had nearly disowned her when she admitted to liking pineapple on pizza. Carmine and I have different visions for the family business, Vincent continued, choosing his words carefully. Our father started with one small restaurant in North Boston 40 years ago. When he died, Carmine and I split the business. He took his restaurants west, I kept mine here and expanded. Different visions, Sophia repeated, sensing there was much more to the story than Vincent was sharing. Does that mean your uncle might try to interfere with your negotiations? Vincent and Diane exchanged a look that Sophia couldn't quite interpret. Carmine plays by different rules, Vincent said finally. He's already reached out to Marco Vitelli, attempting to undercut my offer. That's why it's crucial that these negotiations go smoothly. Diane pushed another folder towards Sophia. These are the key contract points. Familiarize yourself with the terminology. You'll need to be able to translate legal and business terms accurately. Sophia opened the folder and skimmed the contents, recognizing most of the Italian business terms from her time studying abroad. I can handle this. Are there any cultural sensitivities I should be aware of? Topics to avoid? Customs to respect? Again, that flicker of approval from Vincent. Antonio is traditional. He expects a certain level of formality and respect. Don't use first names unless invited to. The Sicilian dialect has some differences from standard Italian. Pay attention to context if you're unsure. Also, Diane added, Antonio is a widower who raised Gabriella after her parents died in a car accident. They're extremely close, and he values her opinion. If you can connect with her, it might help our cause. Sophia nodded, absorbing the information. This was feeling more like a diplomatic mission than a simple translation job. One more thing, Vincent said. Tonight there's a private dinner here at the restaurant. Just me, you, and my head chef, Anthony. I want you to understand our menu thoroughly so you can discuss it intelligently with the Vitellis. Be here at 7. The way he issued commands rather than requests was beginning to irritate Sophia slightly. I have plans with my grandmother tonight, she said. I promised to help her with... Cancel them, Vincent interrupted. As I explained yesterday, I need your complete availability for the next 2 weeks. $500 a day buys your time exclusively. Sophia felt a flash of resentment at his presumption, but she couldn't argue with the logic. She had agreed to the terms. Fine, she said, more curtly than she'd intended. I'll be here at 7. Vincent held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, as if assessing her reaction. Then he nodded once and turned to Diane. Show her the contract translations we've received so far. I want her to review them for accuracy before the meeting tomorrow. He checked his watch. I have a call with the bank. I'll be in my other office downtown. Call me if there are any issues. With that, he left, leaving Sophia alone with Diane and a mountain of documents. Is he always so commanding? Diane supplied with a knowing smile. Yes, but you'll get used to it. She slid a thick stack of papers across the table. Start with these. Flag any translation issues or unclear terms. For the next several hours, Sophia immersed herself in contracts, marketing materials, and product specifications. The morning bled into afternoon as she worked alongside Diane, whose initial frostiness gradually thawed as she recognized Sophia's competence. By 5:30, Sophia's eyes were burning from reading fine print in 2 languages, and her brain felt fuzzy from the constant mental switching between Italian and English. That's enough for today, Diane said finally, gathering her things. You should go home, rest and change before dinner. Sophia stretched, feeling stiffness in her shoulders from hunching over documents all day. Is there anything specific I should wear tonight? Business casual is fine. It's just a tasting dinner, not a formal event. Diane paused, studying Sophia with a slightly softer expression than she'd worn earlier. You did well today. Vincent doesn't trust easily, especially when it comes to these negotiations. The fact that he's bringing you in at all says something. Why is this deal so important to him? Sophia asked, curiosity getting the better of her. Surely there are other suppliers he could work with. Diane considered the question for a moment before answering. Vincent has spent the last 15 years building something his father never managed to achieve, legitimate respect in the restaurant industry. This exclusivity deal with the Vitellis would cement that legacy. The way she emphasized legitimate made Sophia wonder again about those persistent rumors of mob connections. But before she could probe further, Diane changed the subject. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. Anthony takes his tasting menus very seriously, and Vincent... She smiled slightly. Well, you already know how Vincent feels about promptness. When Sophia arrived back at her apartment, she found Jess sprawled on their couch, surrounded by textbooks and laptop, open to what appeared to be a criminal psychology lecture. Well, Jess demanded as soon as Sophia walked in. Spill it. Did you have to witness any concrete shoe fittings today? Sophia rolled her eyes, dropping her bag and kicking off her heels with a groan of relief. It was boring legal document translation all day. No criminal activity whatsoever, unless you count the criminal amount of coffee I consumed. Disappointing, Jess sighed dramatically. So what's he like to work for? Is he as intimidating as everyone says? Sophia considered the question as she collapsed onto the couch beside her roommate. He's intense, definitely used to giving orders and having them obeyed. But he's also smart and seems genuinely passionate about his restaurants. Handsome? Jess waggled her eyebrows suggestively. He's my boss, Jess. That's not an answer. Sophia threw a pillow at her. Fine. Yes, in an older, authoritative, slightly terrifying way, but completely irrelevant since, again, he's my boss, and I'm just doing this interpreter gig for 2 weeks before going back to being an invisible waitress. Jess caught the pillow, grinning. Just saying, it's very rom-com. Waitress catches mafia boss's eye with her secret skills. He's not a mafia boss. Sophia protested, though even to her own ears, it sounded less certain than she would have liked. And I need to shower and change. I have to go back for a dinner thing at 7. Jess's eyes widened. A dinner date with the boss already? That was fast. It's not a date, Sophia corrected, already heading toward the bathroom. It's a tasting dinner with him and the head chef, so I can learn about the menu before the actual Italian business people arrive tomorrow. Uh-huh, Jess called after her. And what are you wearing to this non-date? Good question, Sophia thought, as the hot water of the shower eased the tension from her shoulders. What does one wear to a private dinner with one's temporary boss, who may or may not have mafia connections? In the end, she settled on black slim-fit pants, a deep burgundy blouse with a subtle pattern, and low heels. Professional but not stuffy. She left her dark hair down around her shoulders, instead of the tight ponytail she'd worn earlier, and added minimal makeup, just enough to look polished. As she was about to leave, Jess looked up from her studying to give an approving whistle. Gorgeous. If you don't come home tonight, I'll assume either a whirlwind romance or a mob hit. Either way, I'll avenge you or throw you an amazing wedding. Dealer's choice. You're ridiculous, Sophia laughed, grabbing her purse. Don't wait up. I have no idea how long this will take. Bella Notte, after hours, had a different energy, more intimate somehow, with the lights dimmed and the dining room empty, save for a single table set for 3 near the center of the restaurant. As Sophia approached, she saw Vincent already seated, engaged in conversation with a tall, barrel-chested man in a chef's jacket who gestured animatedly as he spoke. Vincent looked up at her approach, his expression unreadable as he took in her appearance. He stood, the old-world manners at odds with his commanding presence. "Miss Marino, you remember our head chef, Anthony DeLuca?" The chef turned, his broad face breaking into a warm smile that instantly made Sophia feel more at ease than she had all day. "The waitress with the perfect Italian. Good to see you in a different context." She'd interacted with Anthony many times in the kitchen, but always in passing, and usually during the chaotic rush of service. Up close, his resemblance to a friendly bear was even more pronounced, from his substantial frame to his booming voice and the impressive salt and pepper beard that covered most of his lower face. "Chef Anthony," she greeted him with a genuine smile. "Something smells amazing. Just wait until you taste it," he said, pulling out a chair for her. "I've prepared 8 courses to showcase how we use the very ingredients we'll be importing from the Vitellis." Vincent resumed his seat as Sophia sat down, his dark eyes studying her with that same inscrutable expression. "Anthony has been with me since I opened my first restaurant," he explained. "He knows more about Italian cuisine than anyone in Boston." "Except your mother," Anthony corrected with a grin. A ghost of a smile touched Vincent's lips. "Except my mother," he conceded. This brief exchange, the casual reference to Vincent's mother, the easy rapport between boss and chef, humanized Vincent in a way that surprised Sophia. It was the first crack in the intimidating facade he'd maintained all day. "Tonight," Vincent continued, his attention returning to Sophia, "is about education. I need you to understand not just our menu, but the philosophy behind it. When you speak to the Vitellis, especially Antonio, you need to convey my commitment to authentic Italian cuisine." Anthony snapped his fingers, and a server appeared from the kitchen with the first course and 3 glasses of wine. "We begin with a simple bruschetta," Anthony announced as the plates were set before them, "but the quality of the ingredients transforms it from a basic appetizer to something transcendent. The bread is house-made focaccia, the tomatoes are heirloom varieties grown by a local farmer, and the olive oil—" He gestured to Vincent, who picked up the narrative. "The olive oil is from last year's Vitelli harvest," Vincent explained, lifting his glass of wine. "A small batch Antonio sent as a sample. Notice the color, the aroma." Sophia followed his lead, examining the golden-green oil drizzled over the bruschetta before taking a bite. The flavors exploded on her tongue, the sweetness of the tomatoes, the earthiness of the basil, and an olive oil so fruity and complex it made her close her eyes involuntarily. "Oh," she breathed when she opened them again. I've never tasted olive oil like that before." Vincent nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "That's what I'm paying for, that exact reaction. The Vitellis produce oil that makes people stop and take notice." The evening progressed through course after exquisite course, each paired with a different wine and accompanied by Anthony's passionate explanations and Vincent's more measured commentary. Sophia found herself genuinely engrossed, asking questions about techniques and ingredients that seemed to please both men. As they finished the 5th course, a perfect risotto with wild mushrooms, Sophia's curiosity got the better of her. "Why did you become a restaurateur?" she asked Vincent directly. "Was it the family business, or did you choose it?" Vincent took a sip of his wine before answering, his expression thoughtful. "Both, in a way. My father opened the original Bella Notte when I was 10. I grew up in restaurants, watching him build something from nothing. A shadow passed across his features, but my father's vision for the business was different from mine." "Different how?" Sophia pressed gently. Vincent exchanged a glance with Anthony, some unspoken communication passing between them. "My father saw the restaurants primarily as a cash business, useful for certain financial arrangements," Vincent said carefully. "I saw them as legitimate enterprises with potential to be much more. When he died, I chose to take the business in a direction he never considered, focusing on quality, authenticity, and reputation. It was the most personal information he'd shared all day, and Sophia sensed there was much more beneath the surface. But before she could ask another question, Anthony stood. Time for the pasta course. This is where the olive oil truly shines. As the sixth course was served, a deceptively simple cacio e pepe that Anthony insisted was the true test of any Italian chef, Sophia decided to shift the conversation. Tell me about growing up in Boston, she said. I'm actually a transplant. My family moved here from Providence when I was 12. For the first time, Vincent seemed to relax slightly, the rigid set of his shoulders easing as he spoke about the North End neighborhood where he'd grown up, the Italian community that had been like an extended family, the traditions his mother had insisted on maintaining. In turn, Sophia shared stories about her own Italian-American upbringing, her grandmother's refusal to use measuring cups when cooking, her father's passionate rants about American coffee, her year studying in Rome where she'd fallen in love with Renaissance art. By the time dessert arrived, a traditional cannoli with pistachios that Anthony claimed would make Sicilians weep with joy, the atmosphere had transformed from a business dinner to something almost convivial. Even Vincent had shed some of his formality, actually laughing at Sophia's story about accidentally ordering tripe instead of pasta during her first week in Italy. "You have a good ear for language," he commented as they finished their espresso. "That will serve us well tomorrow." The subtle reminder of why they were really there, business, not pleasure, brought Sophia back to reality. Tomorrow she would meet the Vitellis, and this temporary role would begin in earnest. "What time should I arrive in the morning?" she asked, slipping back into professional mode. "Their flight lands at 10. We'll meet them at the Four Seasons at noon," Vincent replied, similarly reverting to his business demeanor. "Diane will pick you up at 11. Anthony excused himself to supervise the kitchen cleanup, leaving Sophia alone with Vincent. An awkward silence fell between them, the easy conversation of moments ago evaporating in the face of their actual relationship, employer and temporary employee. "Thank you for dinner," Sophia said, rising from her chair. "It was educational, as promised." Vincent stood as well, his height making him tower slightly over her despite her heels. "You're welcome. Do you need a car home?" "No, I can take an Uber." He nodded, then hesitated, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. "Sophia," he said, using her first name for the first time, "I appreciate your thoroughness today. These negotiations are important to me, personally important." Something in his tone made Sophia look at him more closely. Behind the confident exterior, she caught a glimpse of something unexpected, vulnerability perhaps. A man with much riding on the outcome of these meetings. "I'll do my best," she promised quietly. "That's all I can offer." "It's enough," he replied, and for a brief moment, their eyes locked in a way that felt significant, though Sophia couldn't have explained why. Then Vincent's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced at the screen, his expression immediately hardening. "I need to take this," he said, all business again. "Anthony will see you out." As Sophia gathered her purse and made her way to the exit, she heard Vincent's voice behind her, speaking rapid Italian into his phone. One phrase caught her attention. "No, Zio, I won't change my mind. The past stays in the past. Uncle." He was talking to his Uncle Carmine, and whatever the subject, it clearly wasn't a friendly family chat. Anthony appeared at her side, walking her to the door. "He's a good man, you know," the chef said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "Despite what you might have heard, he's worked hard to build something his father never could, something honest." Sophia glanced back at Vincent, still engaged in what appeared to be an increasingly heated conversation. "I believe you," she said, and was surprised to realize she meant it. As her Uber arrived and she slid into the back seat, Sophia couldn't help but wonder what exactly she'd gotten herself into. Tomorrow she would meet the Vitellis, and whatever complications Vincent had only hinted at would likely become much clearer. For better or worse, she was now involved in something that felt increasingly complex and personal, far beyond a simple translation job. Sophia smoothed her navy dress as Diane pulled the sleek black Audi up to the Four Seasons Hotel. The morning had passed in a blur of preparation, and now, sitting in the passenger seat beside Vincent's immaculately dressed assistant, she felt a flutter of nerves. "Remember," Diane said as they approached the hotel entrance, "Antonio Vitelli is old school, very traditional, very formal. His granddaughter Gabriella is more modern, but fiercely protective of him. Marco, the nephew, is the most approachable, but don't be fooled, he's a shrewd businessman." Sophia nodded, mentally reviewing the Italian business terms she'd brushed up on that morning. "And Vincent wants exclusivity for all 6 restaurants, correct?" "That's the goal," Diane confirmed as they entered the opulent lobby. Though he'd settled for the 3 higher-end establishments if necessary, Vincent was already there, engaged in conversation with a hotel manager. He looked even more imposing today, in a perfectly tailored dark suit, his posture radiating confidence and authority. He turned as they approached, acknowledging them with a nod. "They've just arrived. We'll meet in the private dining room." The Vitellis made an entrance that commanded attention. Antonio Vitelli led the way, a distinguished man in his late 70s with a full head of silver hair and piercing blue eyes that missed nothing. Despite his age, he carried himself with the straight-backed pride of a much younger man. Behind him came Marco, mid-40s and slick in a modern Italian suit, his smile practiced and charm oozing from every pore. Beside him walked Gabriella, striking in a tailored crimson dress, her dark hair cut in a sharp bob that framed intelligent eyes and high cheekbones. Vincent stepped forward, greeting Antonio with formal respect, clasping the older man's hand between both of his own. "Signor Vitelli, benvenuto a Boston." Antonio's weathered face creased in a smile. "Vincenzo, è un piacere finalmente incontrarti di persona." Sophia listened carefully as Vincent introduced Diane and then turned to her. "E questa è Sofia Marino, la mia interprete per I nostri incontri." Antonio's sharp eyes assessed her. "Parli italiano, signorina?" "Sì, signore," Sofia replied with a respectful smile. "Mio padre è di Firenze. Ho studiato a Roma per un anno." The older man's expression warmed considerably. "Ah, una vera italiana." The initial introductions complete, they proceeded to lunch in a private dining room, where Vincent had arranged for Anthony to prepare a special menu showcasing dishes that would feature the Vitelli's products. As they settled around the table, Sophia positioned herself beside Vincent, ready to translate. The conversation began formally, with exchanged pleasantries and discussions of the Vitelli's journey, but gradually shifted to business as the first course arrived. "Tell Signor Romano," Antonio said to Sophia in Italian, "that my family has been producing olive oil and wine for over 200 years. Our methods are traditional, no chemicals, no modern shortcuts. This is why our products are superior." Sophia translated smoothly, watching Vincent nod in understanding. "Please convey to Signor Vitelli that this tradition and authenticity is precisely why I'm interested in exclusivity," Vincent replied. "My restaurants pride themselves on quality ingredients prepared with respect for Italian traditions." As lunch progressed, Sophia fell into a rhythm, translating the increasingly complex negotiations with careful attention to nuance and cultural context. Vincent spoke about his vision for featuring the Vitelli's products, while Antonio pressed for assurances about how they would be marketed and presented. Marco occasionally interjected with questions about volume and pricing, while Gabriella observed quietly, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Sophia noticed how the younger woman watched, not just Vincent, but her too, as if assessing the accuracy of every translation. Midway through the main course, Gabriella addressed Sophia directly in Italian. "You studied in Rome? What did you study?" Art history," Sophia replied, slightly surprised at the personal question. "I specialized in Renaissance painting." Gabriella's expression softened with interest. "I love art. My grandfather took me to the Uffizi every summer when I was a child." "Who is your favorite artist?" "Caravaggio," Sophia answered without hesitation. "His use of light and shadow, the raw emotion in his work. Antonio joined the conversation enthusiastically. Caravaggio, yes, a true Italian genius, though a troubled soul. For several minutes, the business discussion gave way to an animated conversation about Italian art. Sophia noticed Vincent watching with a carefully neutral expression, though she thought she detected approval in his eyes. The art discussion created a warmer atmosphere that persisted as they returned to business matters. By the end of lunch, tentative progress had been made. The Vitellis would tour Vincent's restaurants over the next few days before making any decisions. As they were preparing to leave, Antonio took Sophia's hand between his weathered ones. "You have a true Italian soul, signorina," he said warmly. "It is a pleasure to speak my language so far from home." Sophia smiled, touched by the old man's kindness. "Grazie, signor Vitelli. È stato un onore conoscerla." Outside the hotel, as they watched the Vitellis depart in their own car, Vincent turned to Sophia. "You did well," he said simply. "You connected with Antonio. That's valuable." Coming from Vincent, the understated praise felt significant. "He's a charming man," Sophia replied, "very passionate about his family's legacy." "Which is why tomorrow is crucial," Vincent said. "We're taking them to tour the flagship restaurant's kitchen and discuss implementation details. Be at my office at 8. No. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of meetings, restaurant tours, and increasingly detailed negotiations. Sophia found herself not just translating, but actively facilitating cultural understanding between Vincent and the Vitellis. She explained American business customs to Antonio when he seemed confused, and quietly advised Vincent on traditional Sicilian expectations when necessary. Through it all, she found herself growing unexpectedly fond of the Vitelli family. Antonio treated her almost paternally, asking about her family and sharing stories of Sicily. Gabriella, initially reserved, warmed to Sophia after discovering their shared love of art, even suggesting they visit Boston's Museum of Fine Arts, if time permitted. Only Marco remained somewhat distant, though unfailingly polite. Sophia occasionally caught him watching Vincent with a calculating expression or stepping away to take private phone calls. On the 4th day, as they finished a tour of Vincent's newest restaurant, Sophia overheard Marco speaking quietly on his phone in a corner, his Italian too low for anyone else to hear. "Yes, the offer from Carmine Romano is still on the table. No, I haven't discussed it with my uncle yet. Of course I understand the implications." Sophia's heart raced. Vincent's uncle was still in play, making competing offers behind the scenes. Should she tell Vincent what she'd heard? Before she could decide, Vincent himself appeared at her elbow. "We need to finalize the contract terms tomorrow," he said in a low voice. "Antonio is impressed, but Marco is pushing back on the exclusivity clause. I need you to help me convince them." Sophia hesitated, then made her decision. "Vincent, I just overheard Marco on the phone. He's still in contact with your Uncle Carmine. There's a competing offer on the table." Vincent's expression darkened momentarily before returning to its usual controlled mask. "I suspected as much. My uncle doesn't give up easily." He studied her face. "Thank you for telling me." That evening, after the Vitellis had returned to their hotel, Vincent asked Sophia to stay behind at the restaurant. "Tomorrow is crucial," he said, pacing the empty dining room. "If Marco has been talking to Carmine, he's likely trying to convince Antonio to split the deal, give Carmine the West Coast rights, and me the East Coast." "Would that be so bad?" Sophia asked. Vincent's jaw tightened. "Yes. My uncle's restaurants don't maintain the quality standards the Vitellis expect. If their products are misrepresented on the West Coast, it could damage the reputation nationwide." He paused. "And there are other considerations." "Like what?" Vincent seemed to wage an internal debate before answering. "My uncle maintains certain business practices my father established, practices I've spent 15 years distancing myself from." The implication hung in the air between them. The rumors about mob connections suddenly felt less like rumors and more like complicated family history. "What can I do to help?" Sophia asked quietly. Vincent's dark eyes met hers, serious and intent. Tomorrow, at the final meeting, I need you to be more than just a translator. I need you to help me connect with Antonio on a personal level. He respects family, tradition, honor. Help me show him that my vision aligns with his values. Sophia nodded, surprising herself with how invested she felt in Vincent's success. I'll do my best. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Sophia arrived at Vincent's office to find him engaged in a tense phone conversation, his knuckles white as he gripped the receiver. "No, that's unacceptable," he was saying as she entered. "The meeting is in 2 hours. We already have everything arranged." He hung up and turned to Sophia, frustration evident in his expression. "Antonio is ill. Nothing serious, just a migraine. But they want to postpone the meeting." "That seems reasonable if he's not feeling well," Sophia suggested. Vincent shook his head. "Marco suggested they meet with me without Antonio. That's the problem. I need Antonio there to counterbalance Marco's influence." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare display of agitation. "And my sources tell me Carmine is flying in this afternoon. If he gets to Antonio before we finalize..." An idea struck Sophia. "What if we go to them? Not a formal meeting, just a gesture of concern for Antonio's health. I could translate, of course, but it would show personal consideration." Vincent considered this, his expression clearing slightly. "That could work. A more intimate setting might actually be better for the final discussions." He nodded decisively. "Call Diane. Tell her to arrange for Anthony to prepare a special package, his grandmother's remedy for headaches, and a selection of small bites that would appeal to someone not feeling well." 2 hours later, they were being ushered into the Vitelli's hotel suite. Antonio, pale but alert, sat in an armchair near the window, while Gabriella hovered protectively nearby. Marco looked surprised and slightly annoyed at their arrival. "Signor Vitelli," Vincent said as Sophia translated, "I was concerned when I heard you were unwell. My chef has prepared his grandmother's remedy for headaches, herbs steeped in olive oil to be applied to the temples, an old Sicilian treatment, I believe." Antonio's face lit up with recognition as Sophia explained. "Ah, yes. My mother used the same remedy. How thoughtful of you, Vincenzo." The informal gesture broke through some invisible barrier. Soon they were all seated comfortably, the business discussion resuming in a more personal, relaxed atmosphere. Vincent skillfully directed the conversation toward family traditions and values, with Sophia not just translating his words, but enhancing them with cultural context and personal warmth. "My father built his business from nothing," Vincent explained, as Sophia translated with careful attention to emotional nuance. "But he never fully understood. The true quality requires patience and respect for tradition. That's what I've tried to build. Restaurants that honor the authentic Italian experience, not just imitate it." Antonio nodded in understanding. "This is what I want for our products as well, not just to sell them, but to have them appreciated properly." As the conversation deepened, Sophia found herself occasionally adding small personal touches to her translations, mentioning her own family's dedication to Italian traditions, referencing her grandmother's insistence on quality ingredients. Each time, Antonio would nod appreciatively, his expression warming. Marco, seeming to sense the tide turning against his preference for a split deal, interjected more forcefully. "But we must consider the broader market potential. Carmine Romano's offer would give us exposure across the entire country." Vincent's expression remained calm, but Sophia noticed the tension in his shoulders. This was the moment of truth. Before Vincent could respond, Gabriella spoke up, surprising everyone. "Nonno," she said to Antonio, "I've visited all of Vincent's restaurants now. They truly do honor our traditions. The care taken with ingredients, the respect for proper preparation. It reminds me of your insistence that things be done the right way, not the easy way." Antonio looked at his granddaughter thoughtfully. "You believe Vincenzo's establishments are the right home for our olive oil and wines?" "I do," Gabriella said firmly. More importantly, I believe his values align with ours. A smile slowly spread across Antonio's face. He turned to Vincent. My granddaughter has excellent judgment. I have raised her to value quality and integrity above all else. He extended his hand. You shall have your exclusivity, Vincenzo, for all of New England. The relief and triumph in Vincent's eyes was momentary but unmistakable before his professional demeanor reasserted itself. You won't regret this decision, Signor Vitelli. I promise you that. As they finalized the verbal agreement with the formal contracts to be signed the following day, Sophia caught Marco slipping from the room, phone already in hand. She didn't need to hear his conversation to know he was calling Carmine with the bad news. When they finally left the hotel, Vincent was uncharacteristically silent during the car ride back to the restaurant. Only when they were alone in his office did he finally speak. We did it, he said quietly, looking at Sophia with an intensity that made her breath catch. You did it. The way you translated, the personal touches you added. You helped Antonio see beyond the business arrangement to the shared values. Sophia felt her cheeks warm under his gaze. I just helped facilitate the conversation. You're the one with the vision he connected with. Vincent shook his head. Don't minimize your contribution. I've worked with professional interpreters before. What you did was different. You didn't just translate words. You translated intention, emotion, cultural context. He hesitated, then added more softly, Thank you, Sophia. And the use of her first name, combined with the genuine gratitude in his voice, created a strange fluttering in her chest. You're welcome, Vincent. They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with something undefined. Vincent took a half-step closer, then stopped as his phone buzzed insistently. He checked the screen and frowned. It's my uncle. I should take this. Sophia nodded, gathering her things. Of course, I'll leave you to it. As she headed for the door, Vincent called after her. Sophia, the contract signing tomorrow is at 11, but there's a celebration dinner afterward. I'd like you to attend, not as an interpreter, but as my guest. She turned, surprised. Your guest? The faintest hint of uncertainty crossed Vincent's normally confident expression. Yes, if you're available. Sophia found herself smiling. I'm available. As she left the restaurant and stepped into the bright afternoon sunlight, Sophia couldn't help but reflect on how dramatically her life had changed in just 5 days. What had begun as a simple translation job had become something far more complex and personally involving. And tomorrow's dinner invitation suggested that whatever was developing between her and Vincent extended beyond their professional relationship. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jess. Still alive or secretly married to the mob boss yet? Sophia laughed and texted back, alive and possibly having dinner with him tomorrow night. As his guest, not his employee. Jess's response was immediate. I knew it was a rom-com situation. Perhaps her roommate wasn't entirely wrong, Sophia thought as she walked toward the subway, a smile playing on her lips. But whatever was happening between her and Vincent Romano was far more complicated than any romantic comedy she'd ever seen. Sophia stared at her closet in frustration, while Jess lounged on her bed, offering increasingly unhelpful suggestions. What about your red dress? Jess proposed. Too flashy for a business dinner, Sophia countered. It's not a business dinner, Jess reminded her with a smirk. He invited you as his guest, remember? Sophia finally selected a knee-length black dress with a subtle pattern of deep blue flowers, elegant enough for a celebration dinner, but not overly formal. As she applied her makeup, Jess continued her interrogation. So he's definitely not a mob boss. Sophia hesitated. After nearly a week working closely with Vincent, she still wasn't entirely sure how to answer that question. His family might have had some connections in the past, but Vincent himself seems determined to run a legitimate business. Seems determined. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. It's complicated, Sophia admitted, applying her lipstick. But I think he's a good man, trying to overcome his family's history. The contract signing that morning had gone smoothly. Antonio Vitelli had signed with a flourish, declaring that he felt he was joining families, not just entering a business arrangement. Marco had maintained a professional demeanor, despite his obvious disappointment, while Gabriella had whispered to Sofia that she hoped they could stay in touch after the Vitellis returned to Sicily. Now, as Sofia arrived at Tesoro, Vincent's most exclusive restaurant for the celebration dinner, she felt a flutter of nerves that had nothing to do with translation responsibilities. Vincent was waiting for her in the elegant foyer, impeccable in a dark suit. His eyes warmed noticeably as they traveled from her face to her dress and back again. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you," Sofia replied, feeling her cheeks warm. "Is everyone already here?" "Just arriving." Vincent gestured toward the private dining room where voices could be heard. "Antonio specifically requested your presence. He says you remind him of his late wife, same spirit, apparently." The dinner was more intimate than Sofia had expected. Just the Vitellis, Vincent, Anthony the chef, Diane, and herself. The atmosphere was celebratory, with Antonio raising multiple toasts to their new partnership and future success. Halfway through the meal, Vincent's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowning slightly before excusing himself. When he returned minutes later, his expression was tense, despite his attempt to appear relaxed. "Everything okay?" Sofia asked quietly when he retook his seat beside her. "My uncle is in town," Vincent murmured, "making trouble as expected." Before Sofia could respond, the restaurant's maître d' approached, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Romano, I apologize for the interruption, but your uncle is in the main dining room. He's insisting on speaking with you and the Vitellis." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Tell him we're in a private celebration and cannot be disturbed." The maitre d' fidgeted nervously. "Sir, he's making a scene." Vincent's expression darkened. He turned to Antonio, explaining the situation and apologizing for the interruption. The older man waved away his concerns. "Family is family, Vincenzo. Sometimes difficult, but always important. Go speak with your uncle." Vincent nodded gratefully, then turned to Sofia. "Would you come with me? I might need a translator if things get heated." In the main dining room, Carmine Romano cut an imposing figure, shorter than Vincent but broader, with the same dark eyes and olive complexion, though his face was heavier and lined with years of what appeared to be harder living. He stood near the bar, a tumbler of whiskey in one hand, his expensive suit slightly rumpled. "Vincenzo," he called when he spotted them, "there's my successful nephew. Too busy for family these days?" Vincent approached his uncle with controlled calm. "This isn't the place, Carmine. I'm in the middle of a business dinner." Carmine's eyes shifted to Sofia, narrowing slightly. "And who's this? Your new translator?" "Marco told me about her." He switched to Italian, addressing Sofia directly. "Has my nephew told you about our family business, Bella?" "The real business?" Sofia maintained a neutral expression. "Mr. Romano and I have a professional relationship. He hired me to translate for his meetings with the Vitellis." Carmine laughed. "Professional, eh? Just like Vincenzo, always so proper now, so legitimate." He spat the last word like an insult. Vincent stepped slightly in front of Sofia. "Say what you came to say, uncle." "You think you've won, cutting me out of the Vitelli deal," Carmine growled, switching back to English. "But you forget where your seed money came from to build all this." He gestured around the restaurant. "Your father's money, our family's money." "Money I've repaid 3 times over," Vincent replied evenly. "The debt is settled, Carmine. It has been for years." Carmine stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Family debts are never settled, Vincenzo. Your father would be ashamed to see how you've turned your back on tradition." "My father's traditions nearly destroyed this family," Vincent countered, his composure slipping slightly. "I chose a different path." "A cleaner path, you mean?" Carmine sneered. "Playing the respectable businessman while looking down on those of us who still honor the old ways." Sophia watched the exchange with growing concern, the implications of their conversation confirming her suspicions about the family's past. "I never looked down on you, Carmine," Vincent said quietly. "I offered you the same chance to legitimize your operations. You refused." Because I'm not ashamed of who we are." Carmine's voice rose, causing nearby diners to turn their heads. Vincent stepped closer to his uncle, speaking too quietly for others to hear. Whatever he said made Carmine's face flush dark with anger. "This isn't over," Carmine growled, draining his whiskey and slamming the glass down on the bar. He turned to leave, then paused, looking at Sophia. "Be careful, Bella. My nephew may wear nice suits and speak pretty words, but Romano blood runs in his veins. He's not so different from me as he pretends." After Carmine left, Vincent stood motionless for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Sophia. "I apologize for that. Are you okay?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer directly. "We should return to our guests." Back in the private dining room, Vincent smoothly explained the interruption as a minor family matter, now resolved. The dinner continued, but Sophia noticed Vincent was more distant, his easy charm replaced by a preoccupied formality. As the evening wound down, the Vitellis prepared to leave, with promises to stay in touch and plans for Vincent to visit Sicily in the coming months. Gabriella hugged Sophia warmly, extracting a promise to exchange emails about art exhibitions. When everyone had gone, Vincent turned to Sophia. "I'll have my driver take you home." "Vincent," Sophia said gently, "what your uncle said is complicated family history," he interrupted. "Nothing for you to worry about." "I think it's a little late for that," she countered. "After everything I've witnessed this week, don't you think I deserve some honesty?" Vincent studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "Not here. Let me take you somewhere more private." 20 minutes later, they were walking along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the dark harbor waters. The night air was cool, and Vincent had draped his suit jacket over Sophia's shoulders. "My father was involved with organized crime," Vincent finally said, breaking the silence. "Nothing like in the movies. No dramatic shootouts or horses' heads in beds, just protection rackets, loan sharking, money laundering through the restaurants." Sophia listened without interrupting, as Vincent explained how his father had built a small empire of restaurants that served more as fronts than legitimate businesses. How when his father died unexpectedly of a heart attack 15 years ago, Vincent had been faced with a choice. Carmine wanted to continue as before. "I wanted something different," Vincent said, stopping to look out over the water. "I used my inheritance to buy him out of the East Coast operations. He took his share west, while I stayed here and slowly, painfully legitimized everything." "Was it difficult?" Sophia asked softly. Vincent's laugh was without humor. "Extricating yourself from those connections?" "Yes, very. It took years, cost me relationships, and nearly bankrupted me twice. But every restaurant I own now is completely legitimate. Every supplier, every investor, every contract, all above board." "And the Vitelli deal?" "Is the final piece," Vincent confirmed. "Their name, their reputation for quality and tradition, being associated with them removes the last shadows of my family's past." He turned to look at her. "That's why it mattered so much. Why your help mattered so much." Sophia absorbed this information, trying to reconcile the man before her with the complicated history he'd just shared. "Thank you for telling me." Vincent studied her face in the dim light. "Does it change how you see me?" "Yes," she admitted honestly, "but not in the way you might think. It makes more sense now, your intensity, your determination, your focus on legitimacy and reputation. You're not running from your past, you're transforming it. That takes courage." Something shifted in Vincent's expression, a vulnerability she hadn't seen before, quickly masked, but undeniably present. "Most people, when they learn even a fraction of my family's history, either run the other direction or try to use it against me," he said quietly. "I'm not most people," Sophia replied simply. Vincent took a step closer. "No," he agreed, "you're not. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibility. Then Vincent's phone buzzed again, breaking the spell. He checked it and sighed. "Diane, there's an issue at one of the restaurants that needs my attention." Sophia nodded, understanding. "You should go. I'll have my driver take you home first." "It's okay," she insisted. "I can catch an Uber." Vincent hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you for tonight, for everything this week." "You're welcome." As Vincent turned to leave, Sophia called after him. "Vincent, my 2 weeks isn't quite up. Will you still need me tomorrow?" He paused, looking back at her. "The official business with the Vitellis is concluded. Your interpreter duties are finished." He hesitated. "But perhaps dinner tomorrow? Not as employer and employee." Sophia smiled. "I'd like that." The next evening found Sophia rushing around her apartment, trying to get ready, while fielding Jess's relentless teasing. "So it's officially a date now?" Jess grinned, perched on Sophia's bed. "Yes, I think so," Sophia admitted, applying her eyeliner. "He's picking me up at 7. The mob boss and the waitress," Jess sighed dramatically. "It's like a Taylor Swift song waiting to happen." "He's not a—" Sophia began automatically, then paused. "Okay, his family might have been connected, but Vincent himself has spent 15 years building a legitimate business." "And you believe him?" Sophia considered the question seriously. "Yes, I do." Her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. "Downstairs. Take your time." Jess peeked out the window and whistled. "Nice car. Very boss-like." Sophia grabbed her purse. "Don't wait up." "Oh, I definitely will," Jess called after her. "I need all the details." Vincent stood beside a sleek black car, opening the passenger door as Sophia approached. He looked different in dark jeans and a charcoal button-down, more relaxed, less intimidating. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes appreciative as they took in her deep green wrap dress. "Thank you. You look different out of a suit," she replied with a smile. "A good different or bad different?" "Definitely good." Vincent drove them to a small restaurant in the North End, not one of his own, but a tiny family-owned place tucked away from the main tourist streets. "Best gnocchi in Boston," he explained as he held the door for her. "And the one Italian restaurant where I can eat without thinking about business." The elderly owner greeted Vincent like family, leading them to a secluded corner table and bringing wine without being asked. For the first time since they'd met, Sophia saw Vincent truly relaxed, the weight of his responsibilities temporarily set aside. "Tell me something I don't know about you," Sophia said as they waited for their appetizers. Vincent considered the question. "I paint," he admitted. "Not well, but it helps me think." "Really? What do you paint?" "Landscapes mostly, the coast, the harbor, places that feel peaceful." This glimpse of Vincent's private self fascinated Sophia. As the evening progressed, they discovered unexpected commonalities. A shared love of classic films, similar taste in books, the same favorite gelato flavor. By the time they finished dinner, the initial awkwardness of transitioning from professional to personal had largely dissolved. Vincent suggested a walk through the North End, pointing out landmarks from his childhood, the church where his mother had insisted the family attend every Sunday, the bakery where he'd had his first job at 13, the small park where he'd played as a child. "You love this neighborhood," Sophia observed as they strolled through the narrow streets. "It's shaped me," Vincent acknowledged, "for better and worse." Near a small fountain they paused, and Vincent turned to face her. "Sophia, I want to be clear about something. My interest in you has nothing to do with your work as an interpreter. That job is done. Payment processed. This," he gestured between them, "is entirely separate." "I know," she said simply. "I'm also aware that there are complications. Our age difference. My family history. The fact that technically you still work at my restaurant." Sophia smiled. "Are you trying to talk me out of this?" "No," Vincent said, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "Just making sure you understand what you might be getting into." "I think I have a pretty good idea," Sophia replied, stepping closer. "And I'm still here." Vincent's expression softened, and he reached out to brush a strand of hair from her face, his touch lingering on her cheek. "So you are." The moment stretched between them, and then Vincent leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Instead, Sophia moved closer, meeting him halfway in a kiss that began gently but quickly deepened with unexpected intensity. When they finally broke apart, Vincent kept his arms around her waist, his expression more open and vulnerable than she'd ever seen it. "That was worth waiting for," he murmured. Sophia smiled up at him, about to respond, when a voice called out from behind them. "Vincenzo Romano, is that you?" They turned to see an older woman approaching, her face lighting up with recognition. Vincent immediately straightened, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "Mrs. Esposito," he greeted her warmly. "How are you?" "Good, good," she replied, her eyes moving curiously to Sophia. "And who is this beautiful girl?" "Sophia Marino," Vincent introduced her. "Sophia, this is Mrs. Esposito. She was my mother's best friend and makes the best cannoli in Boston." The older woman beamed. "Any girl who puts that smile on Vincenzo's face must be special. He works too hard, this one, always serious, just like his father." She patted Vincent's cheek affectionately before continuing on her way, calling back over her shoulder, "Bring her by the bakery sometime. I'll make you both my special pastries." As they resumed their walk, Sophia slipped her hand into Vincent's. "She seems to care about you." "The whole neighborhood watched me grow up," Vincent explained. "After my mother died, women like Mrs. Esposito took it upon themselves to fuss over me." "And how do they feel about what you've done with the family business?" Vincent's expression grew thoughtful. "Most approve. They understood what my father was, even if no one talked about it openly. They're proud that I've built something legitimate." He squeezed her hand gently. "Even criminals' sons can choose different paths." As they approached Vincent's car, his phone rang. He checked the screen and frowned. "It's Diane. I should take this." Sophia nodded, watching as Vincent stepped away to answer the call. His expression quickly shifted from annoyance to concern. "When?" he asked sharply. "Is anyone hurt?" A pause. "Secure the area and call the police. I'm on my way." He ended the call and turned to Sophia, his relaxed demeanor gone, replaced by the commanding presence she'd first encountered. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Someone broke into the flagship restaurant," Vincent explained tersely. "Vandalism mostly, but they targeted the office where we keep the contracts, including the Vitelli agreement. The signed contract is missing? We have digital copies, but yes, the original is gone." Vincent's expression was grim. This wasn't a random break-in. Sophia didn't need to ask who might be responsible. "Carmine." "Most likely," Vincent confirmed. "I need to get over there." He hesitated. "I should take you home first." "I'll come with you," Sophia said firmly. Vincent shook his head. "This could get complicated. It's better if you're not involved." "I'm already involved," Sophia countered. "Besides, I speak Italian. If you need to call the Vitellis about this, I can help." Vincent studied her face, then nodded once. "All right, but stay close to me." The restaurant was surrounded by police cars when they arrived, their flashing lights illuminating the normally elegant facade. Inside, officers were taking photographs of the damage, broken bottles behind the bar, overturned tables, and most telling, the office door that had been forced open. Diane met them at the entrance, her usual composure slightly frayed. "They knew exactly what they were looking for," she reported. "The Vitelli contract is the only thing missing." Vincent surveyed the damage, his expression hardening. "Have you reviewed the security footage?" "Yes. 2 men in masks, but—" Diane hesitated, glancing at Sophia. "She knows about my uncle," Vincent said quietly. "What did you see?" "One of them had a distinctive ring." "The same one your uncle always wears." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Contact our lawyer and call Antonio Vitelli. Explain what happened and assure him we'll have a new contract drawn up immediately." He turned to Sophia. "Would you mind speaking with him? He might be alarmed, and your voice would reassure him." As Sophia spoke with Antonio, explaining the situation in Italian and assuring him that Vincent was handling everything, she watched Vincent conferring intently with the police detective. Despite the crisis, he maintained his composure, his authoritative presence drawing everyone's attention. When she finished the call, Vincent approached her. "How did he take it?" "Better than expected," Sophia replied. "He said, and I quote, 'Family troubles are always the most difficult. Tell Vincenzo I have faith in him.'" Relief flickered across Vincent's features. "Thank you." It was well past midnight by the time the police finished their investigation and left. Vincent insisted on driving Sophia home himself, despite her protests that she could take a rideshare. "I'm sorry about tonight," he said as they pulled up outside her apartment building. "Not exactly how I planned our first date to end." "It's okay," Sophia assured him, "although I'm a little concerned. Will Carmine escalate this further?" Vincent sighed, suddenly looking tired. "Probably, but I'll handle it." "How?" "Legally," he emphasized. "I have connections with the police now, legitimate ones, and I'll have security increased at all the restaurants." He reached over and took her hand. "You don't need to worry about this." "But I do," Sophia admitted. "I care about what happens to you." Vincent's expression softened. He leaned across the console and kissed her gently. "I care about you too. Which is why I want to keep you far away from my family drama." Sophia returned his kiss, then pulled back slightly. "Too late for that. I'm already in the middle of it." As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Sophia couldn't help but wonder what she'd gotten herself into. A week ago, she'd been a simple waitress with an art history degree and modest ambitions. Now she was involved with a man whose complicated past kept intruding on his present, a man whose uncle might be dangerous, whose business dealings were under threat, and whose kiss made her forget all those complications entirely. Jess was waiting up, as promised, practically bouncing with curiosity. "Well, how was it?" Sophia collapsed onto the couch, kicking off her heels. "Wonderful. Then complicated. Then a little scary." "Scary how?" Jess asked, suddenly serious. "Vincent's uncle vandalized his restaurant and stole some important contracts," Sophia explained, "possibly to sabotage his business deal with the Vitellis." Jess's eyes widened. "I was joking about the mob boss thing, but it's not like that," Sophia insisted, though she couldn't quite meet her roommate's eyes. "Vincent has spent years building a legitimate business. His uncle is just stuck in the past." "A past that apparently includes vandalism and theft," Jess pointed out. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Sophia thought about Vincent, his determination to overcome his family history, the vulnerability he'd shown her by the harbor, the way he'd kissed her by the fountain. "No," she admitted honestly, "but I'm going to find out." The next morning, Sophia woke to 3 missed calls from Vincent and a text asking her to meet him at the restaurant as soon as possible. She dressed quickly, concern mounting. When she arrived at Bellanot, the damage from the previous night had already been cleaned up, but the atmosphere remained tense. Vincent was in his office with Diane and a man Sophia didn't recognize. Tall, grey-haired, with the unmistakable bearing of law enforcement. "Sophia," Vincent greeted her, looking like he hadn't slept. "This is Detective Morelli. He has some questions about last night." Detective Morelli's expression was professionally neutral as he turned to her. "Ms. Marino, I understand you were with Mr. Romano when he received the call about the break-in." "Yes," Sophia confirmed. "We were walking in the North End. And prior to that you'd been working as Mr. Romano's interpreter for his business dealings with the Vitelli family, correct?" "Yes, for about a week." The detective nodded, making a note. "Have you had any interactions with Carmine Romano?" "Just once," Sophia replied. "He came here during a celebration dinner with the Vitellis." "And what was the nature of that interaction?" Sophia glanced at Vincent, who nodded slightly, encouraging her to be honest. He was upset about being excluded from the Vitelli deal. He confronted Vincent, made some comments about family obligations and traditions. "Did he make any threats?" "Nothing specific," Sophia said carefully, "but he did say this isn't over when he left." Detective Morelli jotted this down. Thank you, Ms. Marino. That's helpful. After the detective left, promising to keep Vincent updated on the investigation, Sophia turned to him questioningly. What's happening? Vincent ran a hand through his hair, a rare sign of agitation. Carmine called this morning. He wants to meet, just the two of us, family business, he said. Are you going? Sophia asked. I don't have much choice if I want to resolve this without further escalation. Diane excused herself, leaving them alone in the office. I don't like this, Sophia said quietly. Your uncle seems volatile. Vincent's expression softened slightly. I've been handling Carmine my entire life. I'll be fine. He checked his watch. The meeting's in an hour at his hotel. Let me come with you, Sophia suggested. Absolutely not, Vincent replied firmly. Carmine is unpredictable, especially when he feels cornered. Exactly why you shouldn't go alone. Vincent cupped her face gently. Sophia, I appreciate your concern, but this is family business. Romano business. I need to handle it myself. Before she could protest further, Vincent's phone rang. He checked the screen. It's Antonio Vitelli. He answered, speaking in Italian, his expression growing increasingly concerned. When he hung up, Vincent looked troubled. Carmine reached out to Antonio directly, told him I've been hiding aspects of my business, that the contract they signed might not be legally binding because of my family's history. That's ridiculous, Sophia exclaimed. Your business is legitimate. Yes, but doubt is a powerful thing. Vincent paced the office. Antonio trusts me, but he's understandably concerned. I need to resolve this with Carmine today. Despite Sophia's continued protests, Vincent insisted on meeting Carmine alone. He promised to call her afterward and left for his uncle's hotel, leaving Sophia frustrated and worried. Unable to simply wait around, Sophia decided to do something productive. She called Gabriella Vitelli, with whom she'd established a rapport during the week of negotiations. Sophia, how nice to hear from you, Gabriella greeted her warmly. Gabriella, I'm calling about the situation with Carmine Romano, Sophia explained. I'm concerned about how this might affect your family's partnership with Vincent. There was a pause before Gabriella replied. My grandfather is troubled by the accusations, naturally, but he has a good sense for character. He believes in Vincent's integrity. Your grandfather is a wise man, Sophia said. Vincent has worked extremely hard to build a legitimate business. I know, Gabriella replied, surprising Sophia. I researched him extensively before we agreed to the partnership. His transformation of the family business is actually quite remarkable. You knew about his family's past? Sophia asked. Of course. In Sicily, we understand complicated family histories, Gabriella said with a hint of amusement. What matters is who Vincent is now, not who his father was. Relieved, Sophia thanked Gabriella and promised to keep her updated. As she ended the call, her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. Meeting done. Need to see you. Coming to your place. 30 minutes later, Vincent was at her apartment door, his usually impeccable appearance slightly disheveled. A cut on his cheekbone. What happened? Sophia gasped, pulling him inside. Carmine and I had a disagreement, Vincent said grimly. It got physical. He hit you. Sophia led him to the couch, examining the cut. I hit him first, Vincent admitted. Not my finest moment, but he crossed a line. What line? Vincent's expression darkened. He threatened you. Sophia froze. Me? Why? Because he realized you matter to me, Vincent replied simply. Carmine always targets what people care about. It's how he operates. What exactly did he say? Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. It doesn't matter. I made it very clear that if he came anywhere near you, all bets were off. Vincent took her hand. I'm sorry to involve you in this. I'm already involved, Sophia reminded him. What happens now? Now I need to ensure the Vitellis remain confident in our partnership, Vincent said, and I need to protect my business and you from whatever Carmine might do next. For the next 3 days, Vincent increased security at all his restaurants. Sophia returned to her waitressing shifts at Bella Notte, but found herself treated differently by the staff, who now viewed her as somehow connected to the boss. Vincent insisted on having his driver take her home after each shift, despite her protests that it was unnecessary. On the fourth day after Vincent's confrontation with Carmine, Sophia arrived at work to find the restaurant buzzing with tension. Marco led her immediately to Vincent's office. "What's going on?" she asked. "Health inspectors showed up at 3 of Vincent's restaurants simultaneously this morning," Marco explained. "Obviously coordinated and suspicious timing." In the office, Vincent was on the phone, his expression thunderous. When he saw Sophia, he quickly ended the call. "Let me guess, Carmine?" Sophia asked. Vincent nodded grimly. "He has a contact in the health department. It's an old tactic. Fabricate violations, threaten closure, damage reputation. Can he actually shut down your restaurants?" "Not legitimately," Vincent said. "But even unfounded allegations can hurt business, and fighting them takes time and resources. Exactly what Carmine wants with the Vitelli partnership, still new and vulnerable." Before Sophia could respond, Vincent's phone rang again. His expression darkened further as he answered. "Antonio, yes. I've heard about the inspections. No, I assure you they won't find anything. Of course." When he hung up, Vincent looked troubled. "Antonio is concerned. Carmine has been feeding him stories about health code violations and potential legal issues with our contract." "What can I do?" Sophia asked. Vincent hesitated. "Antonio trusts you. He values your opinion. If you could speak with him, reassure him." "Of course," Sophia agreed immediately. "Should I call him now? Or better in person? The Vitellis are still in town, staying at the Four Seasons for another 2 days." An hour later, Sophia sat in Antonio Vitelli's hotel suite, speaking with him in Italian, while Gabriella listened attentively. Sophia explained the situation honestly. Carmine's vendetta against Vincent, his tactics to undermine the partnership, Vincent's long history of legitimizing the family business. "I understand family conflicts," Antonio said finally. "They run deep, especially when mixed with business." He studied Sophia thoughtfully. "You care for Vincenzo, yes? Not just as an employer?" Sophia felt herself blush slightly, but answered honestly, "Yes, I do." Antonio nodded, satisfied. "Good. He needs someone like you, someone who sees him clearly." He patted Sophia's hand. "Tell Vincenzo I stand by our agreement. These health inspections do not concern me. I trust him." Relieved, Sophia thanked Antonio and was about to leave when Gabriella walked her to the door. "My grandfather is a good judge of character," Gabriella said quietly. "Both Vincent's and yours." She hesitated, then added, "Be careful, Sophia. Family feuds like this can be dangerous." "I know," Sophia replied, "but Vincent is worth it." When she returned to the restaurant with Antonio's message, Vincent's relief was palpable. He pulled her into a brief, fierce embrace, not caring who might see. "Thank you," he murmured against her hair. That evening, after her shift ended, Vincent insisted on driving Sophia home himself. As they pulled up outside her apartment building, he turned to her, his expression serious. "Sophia, I need to ask you something important." Her heart quickened. "Yes?" "The health inspections were just the beginning," Vincent said. "Carmine is escalating. Until this is resolved, I think you should stay somewhere else, somewhere Carmine doesn't know about." "You want me to go into hiding?" Sophia asked incredulously. "Just temporarily," Vincent insisted. "I have a property outside the city. It's secure, private." "Vincent, I can't just disappear. I have responsibilities, my grandmother." "Sophie," Vincent interrupted, his voice gentle but urgent. "This morning, someone followed you from your apartment to the restaurant. One of Carmine's men." She felt a chill run through her. "Are you sure?" "Positive. My security team identified him." Vincent took her hand. "I would never forgive myself if something happened to you because of me." Sophia considered his request, torn between independence and the genuine concern in Vincent's eyes. "How long?" "A few days. A week at most." just until I can resolve this situation with Carmine once and for all. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Vincent's expression hardened. Legally, I've been building a case against him for years. Documentation of his less than legitimate business practices. I've been reluctant to use it because despite everything, he's still family. But if he's threatening you, Sophia made her decision. I'll stay at your property, but only for a few days. Relief washed over Vincent's features. Thank you. Pack some things and I'll have my driver pick you up in an hour. Vincent's property outside the city turned out to be a stunning waterfront home on the North Shore, isolated and secure with a state-of-the-art security system. As Vincent showed her around, Sophia couldn't help but be impressed by the elegant yet comfortable space, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic. It's beautiful, she said, taking in the view. Do you come here often? Not as much as I'd like, Vincent admitted. It was my mother's favorite place. After she died, I couldn't bear to sell it. This glimpse into Vincent's personal life touched Sophia deeply. Thank you for sharing it with me. Vincent's phone rang before he could respond. He answered, his expression immediately tensing. When? How bad? No, keep everyone away until I get there. What's happened? Sophia asked as he hung up. Someone set fire to the flagship restaurant's storeroom, Vincent replied grimly. It was contained quickly, but he ran a hand through his hair. This has gone too far. Carmine again? Almost certainly. Vincent moved toward the door. You'll be safe here. The security system is top of the line, and I have people watching the property. I need to go deal with this. Sophia grabbed his arm. Vincent, this is serious. You need to go to the police. I am, he assured her. Detective Morelli is already at the restaurant. This isn't just family business anymore. It's arson. After Vincent left, Sophia explored the house, struck by the personal touches that revealed aspects of Vincent she hadn't seen before. Family photographs, books on art and history, even a small studio where he clearly worked on his paintings. In the master bedroom, she found a photo of a striking woman with Vincent's dark eyes, standing beside a handsome but harder-looking man. Vincent's parents, she guessed. The contrast between them was striking. The woman's gentle smile versus the man's stern expression. Sophia's phone rang, startling her. It was Jess. "Where are you?" her roommate demanded. "I came home, and all your stuff is gone." "I'm staying at Vincent's place for a few days," Sophia explained, deliberately vague. "Things have gotten complicated." "Complicated how?" "Sophia, you're scaring me." Sophia sighed, then told Jess everything. Carmine's threats, the vandalism, the health inspections, and now the fire. "Holy shit," Jess breathed. "This is serious mob stuff, Soph." "It's not mob stuff," Sophia insisted automatically, though the distinction was becoming increasingly blurred. "It's a family feud that's gotten out of hand." "A family feud involving arson and threats," Jess pointed out. "Are you sure you want to be in the middle of this?" It was a fair question, one Sophia had been asking herself repeatedly. "I care about Vincent," she said finally, "and I believe in what he's trying to build. Just be careful," Jess pleaded, "and keep me posted. If I don't hear from you daily, I'm calling the cops." After promising to check in regularly, Sophia hung up and wandered to the kitchen, suddenly realizing she hadn't eaten since lunch. As she rummaged through the well-stocked refrigerator, her phone rang again. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Sophia Marino?" a male voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "Someone who thinks you should know what you've gotten yourself into with Vincent Romano." The voice was smooth, calculating. "Ask him about Pier 17. Ask about what happened there 15 years ago, right after his father died." "Who is this?" Sophia demanded, but the line had already gone dead. She stood frozen in the kitchen, the mysterious message echoing in her mind. When Vincent finally returned hours later, looking exhausted and smelling faintly of smoke, Sophia was waiting in the living room, torn between concern for him and curiosity about the cryptic call. The damage was minimal, Vincent reported, sinking onto the couch beside her. But it could have been much worse if the sprinklers hadn't activated quickly. Sophia handed him the glass of whiskey she'd poured in anticipation of his return. The police? Taking it seriously. Security footage shows two men entering through the back. Their faces weren't visible, but Detective Morelli is investigating. Vincent took a long sip of his drink. "How are you doing here?" "Fine." Sophia hesitated, then decided to be direct. "Vincent, I got a strange call while you were gone. Someone telling me to ask you about Pier 17, something that happened 15 years ago." Vincent went very still, his expression closing off. "Carmine," he said finally, "trying to drive a wedge between us. Is there anything to it?" Vincent set down his glass, his eyes meeting hers directly. 15 years ago, after my father died, there was an incident at Pier 17, a meeting between my uncle, several of my father's associates and me. Things got heated. One of the men pulled a gun. In the struggle, he went into the harbor. "He drowned?" Sophia asked quietly. "Yes." Vincent's voice was even. "It was ruled self-defense. But Carmine has always held it against me, claimed I could have saved him, but chose not to. Is that true?" "No," Vincent said firmly. "But it was the moment I decided to cut ties with that world completely. The next day I started the process of legitimizing the business." Sophia studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. Finding none, she nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me." Vincent reached for her hand. "No more secrets between us. If Carmine is reaching out to you directly, things are escalating faster than I anticipated." "What do we do?" "Tomorrow, I present everything I have on Carmine's illegal operations to Detective Morelli," Vincent said grimly. "Family loyalty has its limits, and he crossed them when he threatened you and set fire to my restaurant. Will that be enough to stop him?" "It will have to be." Vincent squeezed her hand. "In the meantime, we both need rest. It's been a long day." As they prepared for bed, moving around each other in the unfamiliar space with a surprising ease, Sophia found herself reflecting on how quickly her life had transformed. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a waitress with an art history degree and modest ambitions. Now she was hiding in a luxury home, involved with a man whose complicated past kept threatening his present, their present. Yet as Vincent pulled her close in the darkness, his heartbeat steady against her cheek, Sophia couldn't bring herself to regret any of it. Whatever came next, they would face it together. "Sophia?" Vincent murmured, his voice rough with exhaustion. "Yes? Thank you for believing in me." She pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. "Always." Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the sound of Vincent's voice from the next room. She slipped on his discarded shirt and padded barefoot toward the study, where she found him engaged in an intense phone conversation. "No, we proceed as planned," he was saying. "Morelli has everything he needs." "Yes, all of it, even the Chicago operations." "I understand what this means, Diane." When he hung up, Vincent looked both determined and troubled. He smiled when he noticed Sophia in the doorway, his eyes softening as they took in her appearance in his shirt. "Good morning," he said, crossing to kiss her lightly. "I hope I didn't wake you." "You're really going through with it?" she asked. "Turning everything over to the police?" Vincent nodded. "Meeting Morelli in 2 hours. Once Carmine realizes I've given the authorities evidence of his operations in 3 states, he'll back off. Self-preservation will outweigh vengeance." "And the family connection?" A shadow passed over Vincent's features. "Some ties need to be severed, no matter how painful. I tried for 15 years to maintain some relationship with my uncle while keeping my business clean. It's clear that can't continue." After breakfast, Vincent prepared to leave for his meeting with Detective Morelli. At the door, he held Sophia tightly, his face buried in her hair. "Stay here," he instructed. "Keep the security system armed. I'll be back as soon as I can." Sophia nodded against his chest. "Be careful." Vincent lifted her chin, his dark eyes serious. "When this is over, you and I need to talk about the future." "The future?" A small smile played at his lips. Yes, our future, specifically. The promise in those words lingered with Sophia as she watched Vincent's car disappear down the private driveway. She wandered through the beautiful house, appreciating details she'd missed the night before, the carefully chosen artwork, family photographs showing generations of Romanos, Vincent's small collection of Italian poetry. Around noon, her phone rang, Jess checking in as promised. Sophia reassured her roommate that everything was under control, though she carefully avoided mentioning the escalation with Carmine or Vincent's meeting with the detective. "So, when are you coming home?" Jess asked. "Soon," Sophia promised, "once things settle down." "And will they? Settle down, I mean." It was a fair question. "Vincent's handling it," Sophia said with more confidence than she felt. After the call, Sophia tried to distract herself by exploring Vincent's painting studio. His landscapes revealed a sensitivity that contrasted with his public persona. Peaceful ocean scenes, moody harbors at dawn, the Boston skyline at dusk. As she studied a particularly striking seascape, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Vincenzo isn't telling you everything. Check the boathouse." Sophia stared at the message, her heart racing. Another attempt by Carmine to create doubt. Or something more. The property included a small boathouse, visible from the main house's rear windows. Sophia hesitated, torn between ignoring what was likely a manipulation tactic and her own curiosity. Curiosity won. After carefully checking that the security system showed no breaches, Sophia ventured down to the boathouse. It was locked, but she found the key in a kitchen drawer labeled Boathouse. Inside, she found a pristine wooden speedboat and neatly organized fishing equipment. Nothing suspicious or concerning. Feeling foolish for taking the bait, Sophia was about to leave when she noticed a small safe tucked in the corner beneath some life jackets. The safe was locked, of course, and Sophia had no idea what the combination might be. She was turning to leave when her eye caught a small plaque on the boat with a date, Vincent's mother's birthday, which she'd noticed in one of the family photographs. On a hunch, she tried the date as the combination. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single folder containing documents and photographs, evidence of financial transactions, meetings between Carmine and known criminal figures, and most disturbingly, surveillance photos of Sophia herself from the past 2 weeks. Her hands shaking, Sophia flipped through the material, trying to make sense of it. Why would Vincent have surveillance photos of her? And why hide them in a locked safe in the boathouse? Her phone rang, startling her. Vincent. "Hey," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. "How did the meeting go?" "It's done," Vincent replied, sounding weary but relieved. "Morelli has everything. Carmine will be brought in for questioning today." "That's good." Something in her tone must have alerted him. "Is everything all right there?" "Fine," Sophia lied. "Just worried about you." "I'm on my way back now. Should be there in 30 minutes. After hanging up, Sophia carefully replaced everything in the safe, exactly as she'd found it, and returned to the house, her mind racing with questions and doubts. When Vincent arrived, she was waiting in the living room, the mysterious text message displayed on her phone. He noticed her expression immediately. "What's happened?" he asked, tension returning to his shoulders. Sophia showed him the text. "I checked the boathouse," she admitted. "I found the safe." "Vincent, why do you have surveillance photos of me from before we even met?" Vincent closed his eyes briefly, a muscle working in his jaw. "I can explain." "Please do." He sat beside her, maintaining a careful distance. "When my regular translator quit right before the Vitelli meetings, I needed a replacement quickly. Diane suggested I consider staff members who might speak Italian. Your personnel file mentioned fluency. That doesn't explain the surveillance. Before trusting someone with negotiations that important, I had to be certain they were reliable. So yes, I had you checked out." Vincent met her gaze directly. "Background check, references, recent activities." Standard procedure for anyone in a position of trust. Without my knowledge or consent, Sophia pointed out, hurt evident in her voice. Yes, Vincent acknowledged. It was a professional decision I made as your employer. I didn't anticipate, he gestured between them, this. So when you heard me speaking Italian on the phone that day, I already knew you were fluent. I was waiting for an opportunity to approach you about the translator position. Vincent leaned forward. The surveillance ended the day you agreed to the job, Sophia. Everything since then has been genuine. Sophia absorbed this, emotions warring within her, hurt at the invasion of privacy, understanding of his business caution, confusion about what it meant for their relationship. The person who texted me knew exactly where to send me to find something that would create doubt between us, she realized aloud. Carmine, Vincent confirmed grimly. He must have broken in at some point, found the safe. He's desperate now that I've turned evidence over to the police. Is that why you hid the folder in the boathouse instead of giving it to Detective Morelli? Vincent shook his head. Those photos were private, evidence of my invasion of your privacy. I was ashamed of starting our relationship with that kind of distrust. I couldn't bring myself to destroy them, but I didn't want them in the main house either. His explanation made a certain sense, but doubt lingered. Before Sophia could respond, Vincent's phone rang. Detective Morelli. Vincent answered, his expression darkening as he listened. When? Do you have any leads? I understand. Yes, we're at the Shore House. I'll increase security here. What is it? Sophia asked as he ended the call. Carmine's gone, Vincent said tersely. Officers went to bring him in for questioning, but he'd already fled. And he knows we're here. The implication sent a chill through Sophia. What do we do? We need to leave, Vincent decided, already moving toward the bedroom. Pack whatever you brought. We'll go to a hotel in the city where I have security arrangements. As Sophia gathered her things, the hurt and doubt she'd felt minutes earlier were pushed aside by more immediate concerns. Whatever complications existed between her and Vincent, Carmine's threat was real and immediate. They were heading for the front door when Vincent's phone rang again. This time, Antonio Vitelli. Antonio, Vincent answered, switching to Italian. His expression shifted from concern to alarm as he listened. When did he contact you? No, absolutely not. Antonio, you cannot meet with him. Yes, I understand, but... Vincent lowered the phone, looking grim. Carmine reached out to Antonio, claiming he has evidence that would invalidate our contract. He's requested a meeting, just the two of them. And Antonio agreed? Sophia asked incredulously. Against my strong objection, Vincent confirmed. They're meeting at Bella Notte in 1 hour. Antonio says he wants to hear both sides of the family story before making his final decision about our partnership. It could be a trap, Sophia warned, or a desperate last attempt by Carmine to salvage something before the police close in. Vincent pocketed his phone. Either way, I need to be there. We need to be there, Sophia corrected firmly. Antonio trusts me. I might be able to help. Vincent looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. Stay close to me at all times. Then the drive to Boston was tense, with Vincent making calls to increase security at the restaurant and alert Detective Morelli about the meeting. Sophia sat silently beside him, still processing the revelations about the surveillance while preparing herself for the confrontation ahead. Bella Notte was closed to the public when they arrived, with 2 of Vincent's security team positioned discreetly near the entrance. Inside, Antonio Vitelli sat alone at a corner table, his weathered hands wrapped around an espresso cup. Vincenzo, Sophia, he greeted them with a solemn nod. I expected you might come. Antonio, this meeting is dangerous, Vincent said immediately, taking a seat across from the older man while Sophia sat beside him. Carmine is unpredictable, especially now. So I gather, Antonio replied calmly. But in my experience, family disputes are best resolved through direct conversation, not through intermediaries or authorities. This goes beyond a family dispute, Vincent argued. Carmine has resorted to vandalism, threats, even arson. Antonio's eyebrows rose slightly. Serious accusations. Documented ones, Vincent countered. The police are looking for him now. Before Antonio could respond, the restaurant's side door opened, and Carmine Romano entered alone. He looked disheveled, his usual polished appearance replaced by a man clearly on the run, unshaven, his expensive suit wrinkled. "Family meeting," Carmine observed with a bitter smile, approaching the table. "How appropriate." Vincent rose, positioning himself slightly in front of Sophia. "This was a mistake, Antonio. Carmine isn't here to negotiate in good faith." "Let me be the judge of that," Antonio replied mildly. "Please, everyone sit." Carmine took a seat, his eyes darting between Vincent and Sophia before settling on Antonio. "Thank you for agreeing to meet, Signor Vitelli. I believe you deserve to know the truth about my nephew's business before committing your family's legacy to his hands." "And what truth is that?" Antonio asked. "That Vincenzo's legitimate facade is just that, a facade," Carmine claimed. "The money that built his empire came from our family's less legitimate enterprises. Profits he now pretends to disdain." Vincent's jaw tightened. "I've never denied where the initial capital came from, Carmine. What matters is what I've built with it, a legitimate business that stands on its own merits." "Not legitimate," Carmine scoffed. "Tell that to Joey Mancini at Pier 17. The name hung in the air between them. Sophia watched Vincent carefully, remembering his explanation of the incident. "That was self-defense," Vincent said quietly. "As the police investigation confirmed, because you controlled the narrative." Carmine's voice rose. "You let him drown, Vincenzo. Then you used the incident to cut ties with everyone who helped build our family's business, including me." "I chose a different path," Vincent replied evenly. "One that didn't require breaking the law to succeed." Antonio had been watching this exchange silently, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Now he turned to Carmine. "You claim to have evidence that would invalidate my contract with Vincent. What is this evidence?" Carmine reached into his jacket, producing a folder. "Financial records showing the connection between Vincent's restaurants and our family's original operations. Proof that his business was built on blood money." "Origins I've never denied," Vincent interjected. "The question is what I've done since." Antonio took the folder, opening it briefly before setting it aside. "I am not concerned with where Vincent's initial funding came from, Carmine. I'm interested in the man he is today, the business he operates now." "A business built on hypocrisy!" Carmine slammed his fist on the table. "He pretends to be better than the rest of us while profiting from the foundation our father built. A foundation I've spent 15 years transforming," Vincent countered, "while you've continued the same practices that nearly destroyed our family." The tension between the two men was palpable. Sophia glanced toward the entrance, wondering if the police had been alerted, if Detective Morelli was on his way. Antonio cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, I am an old man who has seen many family disputes. They rarely end well without compromise." He turned to Carmine. "What is it you truly want from this situation?" The question seemed to catch Carmine off guard. "I want what's rightfully mine, recognition of my contribution to the family business, a share in the Vitelli partnership." "Which would undermine everything I've built," Vincent objected. Antonio raised a hand. "Vincent, please. Let me ask another question." He fixed Carmine with a penetrating gaze. "Is your dispute truly about business, or is it about your relationship with your nephew?" The blunt question seemed to deflate some of Carmine's anger. For a moment, vulnerability showed through his hardened exterior. "When my brother died," Carmine said finally, "Vincent turned his back on everything we'd built together. Acted like he was too good for the family business, too good for me." He looked at Vincent. "You were like a son to me once. Then you became my judge." Vincent's expression softened slightly. "I never judged you, Carmine. I simply chose a different path." "A path that excluded me entirely," Carmine said bitterly. Antonio nodded thoughtfully. Family wounds run deeper than business disagreements. He turned to Vincent. Perhaps there is room for reconciliation that doesn't compromise your principles. Vincent seemed about to object when Sophia spoke up. Vincent, may I say something? She asked quietly. He nodded, curious. Sophia turned to Carmine. Mr. Romano, I've only known your nephew for a short time, but I've seen how much he values what he's built. Not just the restaurants themselves, but what they represent. A legacy he can be proud of, one built on quality and integrity. Carmine started to speak, but Sophia continued. I've also seen how much the family connection still matters to him, despite everything. The way he talks about his mother, the traditions he maintains in the restaurants, even the conflicted way he speaks about you. Family still means everything to him. Vincent looked at her with surprise, clearly not expecting this intervention. What are you suggesting, young lady? Carmine asked, his tone less hostile than before. That maybe there's a way forward that honors both the family connection and Vincent's commitment to legitimate business, Sophia proposed. Not a partnership in the current ventures, but perhaps something new. Something that builds on the Romano name without compromising what either of you stands for. Antonio nodded approvingly. Wisdom from unexpected places, he murmured. Vincent, what do you think? Vincent was silent for a long moment, studying his uncle's face. Carmine, if you're willing to leave behind certain business practices, I might be open to discussing a new venture. Something separate from my existing restaurants and the Vitelli partnership, but still bearing the Romano name. What kind of venture? Carmine asked, skepticism evident, but interest piqued. A Romano imports company, perhaps, focusing on quality Italian products for distribution to restaurants beyond my own. Legitimate, transparent, but still honoring our family's heritage. Vincent leaned forward. But only if you're ready to operate completely above board. The offer hung in the air between them. Sophia held her breath, watching the internal struggle play out on Carmine's face. I'd still face charges for recent events, Carmine said finally. Yes, Vincent acknowledged. Those consequences can't be avoided now, but afterward there could be a new beginning. Before Carmine could respond, the restaurant door opened and Detective Morelli entered with 2 uniformed officers. Carmine Romano, Morelli announced. We've been looking for you. Carmine tensed, his hand moving toward his jacket. Vincent noticed the movement and locked eyes with his uncle. Don't, he said quietly. There's still a way forward, but not if you make things worse now. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Carmine slowly raised his hands. I'll come peacefully, he said, surprising everyone. He looked at Vincent. We'll talk about this import business after I deal with these charges. As the officers took Carmine into custody, Antonio Vitelli rose from his seat, nodding with satisfaction. Family, he said simply. Always complicated, but always worth saving if possible. Vincent walked over to Detective Morelli, speaking with him quietly as Carmine was led away. Sophia found herself alone with Antonio at the table. You care deeply for him, the older man observed. Yes, Sophia admitted, though it's all happened very quickly. Antonio smiled knowingly. The best loves often do. My wife and I, 52 years together before she passed, we decided to marry after knowing each other just 2 weeks. His eyes twinkled. Sometimes the heart recognizes what the mind would take months to analyze. When Vincent returned to the table, he looked both relieved and emotionally drained. It's over, he said simply. Carmine will face charges, but his cooperation might mitigate the sentence. And your offer? Antonio asked. Stands, Vincent confirmed. If he's serious about legitimate business when this is resolved. Antonio nodded approvingly, then checked his watch. I should go. My flight to Sicily leaves early tomorrow. He rose, embracing Vincent warmly. You've proven yourself a man of integrity, Vincenzo, in business and in family matters. I'm proud our families are now connected. He turned to Sophia, taking her hands in his weathered ones. Take care of each other, he said simply. Life is too short for anything less. After Antonio left, Vincent and Sophia remained at the table, the events of the day settling around them like dust after a storm. "I'm sorry," Vincent said finally, "about the surveillance, about dragging you into my family drama, about all of it." Sophia reached for his hand across the table. "Not all of it," she said softly. "Some parts I wouldn't change for anything." Vincent's expression softened. "Even after learning how our relationship really began?" "It began with a phone call in Italian that you overheard," Sophia corrected. "Everything that followed, the work we did together, the trust that developed, the feelings that grew, that was real." She squeezed his hand. "The beginning doesn't define the whole story, Vincent." He brought her hand to his lips. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Probably not," she agreed with a small smile. "But you have it anyway." Vincent studied her face, his dark eyes serious. "Earlier, before all this happened, I mentioned needing to talk about our future." Sophia's heart quickened. "I remember. I know it's been only 2 weeks since you answered that phone call in Italian. In normal circumstances, this would be far too soon." Vincent took a deep breath. "But these haven't been normal circumstances. We've compressed months of experiences into days." "True," Sophia agreed, trying to keep her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "I'm not proposing marriage," Vincent clarified with a small smile. "Even I recognize that would be rushing things. But I am proposing something." "What?" "A beginning. A real one, without secrets or ulterior motives. Just you and me, seeing where this leads." He met her gaze directly. "I've fallen in love with you, Sophia Marino, against all logic and time frames and common sense." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. "I've fallen in love with you too, Vincent Romano, equally against all logic." "Then say yes to a beginning," Vincent urged softly. "Say yes to building something together, something legitimate and true, just like the business I've created." Sophia laughed through her tears at his choice of words. "Yes," she said simply, "to a beginning, to us." Vincent leaned across the table, capturing her lips in a kiss that felt like a promise, of honesty, of possibility, of a future neither of them could have imagined 2 weeks ago when a waitress answered a phone call in Italian within earshot of a man seeking redemption. 2 months later, Sophia stood in the center of the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, surrounded by guests at the opening of her first curated exhibition, Heritage and Transformation: Italian Renaissance Influences in Modern Life. The exhibition had come about through an unexpected connection. Gabriella Vitelli had mentioned Sophia's art history background to a friend on the museum's board, leading to an interview and eventually this opportunity. Vincent appeared at her side, handsome in a tailored suit, pride evident in his expression. "Congratulations," he murmured, handing her a glass of champagne. "The exhibition is magnificent." "I couldn't have done it without you," Sophia acknowledged. Vincent had not only introduced her to key contacts, but had encouraged her to pursue her passion even as their relationship deepened. "Yes, you could have," he corrected gently, "but I'm glad to be part of it." Across the gallery, Sophia spotted her grandmother chatting animatedly in Italian with Antonio Vitelli, who had returned to Boston specifically for the exhibition opening. Nearby, Jess was deep in conversation with Anthony the chef, who seemed to be explaining something about Italian cuisine with characteristic enthusiasm. Even Carmine was present, recently released on bail pending trial and tentatively reconnecting with his nephew. He stood somewhat awkwardly near a Renaissance painting, occasionally engaging with guests who approached him. As Sophia surveyed the room, filled with people from all the different facets of her life now intersecting, she marveled at how much had changed because of one simple moment, answering her phone in Italian within earshot of the restaurant owner. "Penny for your thoughts?" Vincent asked, his arms slipping around her waist. "I was just thinking about beginnings," Sophia replied, leaning into him slightly, "and how you never know which seemingly ordinary moment might change everything." Vincent pressed a kiss to her temple, like a waitress answering her phone in Italian. "Exactly like that." "I have something for you," Vincent said, reaching into his pocket. He produced a small box, not a ring box, Sophia noted, with both relief and a curious twinge of disappointment. Inside was a delicate gold pendant in the shape of an antique telephone. "To commemorate our beginning," Vincent explained with a smile, "and to remind us both that sometimes the most important connections happen when we least expect them." Sophia turned, allowing him to fasten the necklace around her throat. "It's perfect," she whispered. As they moved through the exhibition together, greeting guests and explaining the artwork, Sophia felt a sense of rightness that transcended the whirlwind nature of their relationship. What had begun with misunderstanding and hidden motives had transformed into something authentic and strong, a partnership built on mutual respect, forgiveness, and love. Just like Vincent had transformed his family's legacy from something shadowed to something admirable, they had transformed an accidental connection into a relationship worth building a future on. And it had all started with a simple phrase, "Pronto, nonna?"